Hey y'all, Shams from Joe's here. I just wanted to say that from now the podcast will follow a bi-weekly schedule instead of weekly. That's it, I guess. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Just Our Stories, episode 7. Today we're going to be talking about working with and around tech. As you guys already know, technology is kind of everywhere, and there's a lot of people working in this space and a lot of people interested to work in the space. So thought it'd be really interesting to kind of get a bunch of people's opinions on it, people who've already been familiar with the field or currently working at it. Here today, we got a couple guests with us. So we got Sherry. Just want to quickly say hi.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sherry. I actually have more experience on the functional side of tech. I have no technical skills myself, but I worked for a tech recruiting startup on and off since 2018. So happy to share my experience there.
Okay, thanks for that, Sherry. And then we got Hassan.
Yeah, I'm just Hassan. I'm getting a degree in computer science, so that's basically my experience with tech.
Right on, that's pretty relevant tech. And then finally we got Rushabh.
What's up? My name is Rushabh, and my background in tech is that I'm currently working in a startup here in Toronto as a developer. But I also have had previous roles in different capacities at other startups in Toronto as well. So, yeah, happy to share what I know.
Okay, and of course we have Tahmid. Do you just want to? Do you even need an introduction at this point?
All right. Thanks for having me as a speaker this time. Thankfully, I'm not moderating today. Woo. But so my relationship with tech goes decades ago, from playing flash games online on computers back when internet was still dial-up, and then really getting interesting through schooling and wanting to run my own game servers. Had to teach myself Visual Basics, SQL. This is back in the day. I don't know how relevant those are now, but and then learning it at the school level, high school level, and then eventually never working in it, but still being connected to the tech world through the nonprofit sector, running programs in entrepreneurship and technology, rubbing shoulders with some tech entrepreneurs here and there, big time and small time, and also doing a PhD where I look at digital innovations as one of the aspects of my research. So that relationship's never really gone away. So I'd be glad to share whatever insights I might have.
Mm-hmm. Damit, you mentioned you had a pretty extensive background in tech already, quite a while away. Like, what kind of led you to tech in the first place? Just transition to the first question there.
Right, I was just a young kid trying to have fun. Computers wasn't that good, so internet connection back then wasn't that good, especially if you didn't have top dollars. So if you know the technology cost curve, right, when the vacuum came out, you'd pay like $2,000 for an average vacuum. That same vacuum now is $20 or whatever, right? So it's expensive, and if you didn't have access or the dollars, you had to find nifty ways to get around. You had to learn on your own, how do I best use what resources and what technologies I have? And it just started as a kid, and a lot of it was self-exploration. I used to play MMORPGs. You guys know that? It's like massively multiplayer online games. And then I realized that people were knocking off these servers and hosting their own servers. And I'm like, oh wow, instead of playing, I also want my friends to join my servers and run servers. And it became like, by the age of 14, I literally had my own server set up with a game. I was inviting friends, and you had to check logs, manage activity logs, and manage the servers. And it really started like that. And at the time at 14, 15, you don't know what you want to do. It just happened by chance that I ended up in a high school program which focused on mathematics, sciences, and computer sciences. So they forced us to learn Turing and grade 9, which is like this old school programming language. But then in grade 10, they force you don't have a choice to learn Java and Photoshop and Flash. So I just fell into the system at a young age. I was just trying to have fun. A lot of the kids I went through high school with now work at like Apple, Tesla, Google, you name it. I know somebody there, MIT, PhDs. But yeah, it wasn't any conscious choice. It's just that I was going along with what was happening around me, really.
I think it sounds like from what a lot of people I know in tech too, they got in through the whole video game and exploration route, just kind of trying to have fun. I wonder what the rest of the people have to say about their journey into it.
I guess for me, my journey was basically kind of the same as Tamid, but like instead of like video games, it was just like school. Literally for me, I literally didn't even care anything about tech or anything. But during grade 10, I had to choose like classes to take, and my school was like known for being pretty good in computer science. So I just decided to take the class, and then I just ended up taking it every year. And then for some reason, I decided, oh, let me just apply to a university program. I got in, and then now I'm in computer science. So I think it's somewhat similar to like how Tamiwa says, where it's kind of one with the flow. I just went in, but rather than like me experimenting, it was like the school system that like helped me get into it in the first place.
Right. So you had a bit of experience from like going into and working within high school, and then that just kind of led to a natural route.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, fair enough. Sherry, I know you said you worked in the HR recruiting startup.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like it's a hard thing to explain, but essentially the company that I interned at and then worked part-time at, what they did was they found senior tech talent kind of internationally, and then they connected them to Canadian companies. So it's just kind of like a pipeline, I guess, to international top tech talent. But yeah, I didn't honestly even know that was a thing. Like, I've always been interested in tech. I never really played video games when I was little, but it was more through like YouTube and social media that I just found it very interesting, and like kind of got more into the digital world that way. Never took any real like coding classes or comp sci classes or anything in high school, so it was kind of hard for me to picture being in tech, just because I didn't think that like I could do it without those technical skills. But in second year of university, I reached out to, I was looking for jobs, looking for internships, reached out to a CEO of the company, kind of just explaining where I was coming from. I had more of a marketing background, and so I got into it through that, and I think that was a really cool way for me to discover that you don't necessarily need to be in a technical role to work in tech. I'm so sorry, I'm at home. And
Tech keep disrespecting us.
Yeah, so like I was saying, I think it was cool for me to learn that like there's so many different roles in the tech world. You don't necessarily have to be a coder or a software engineer. You can go in through other ways and still be kind of connected in like whatever capacity you like. I like more marketing and strategy, so that's the route that I took. I think it's just more interesting, right? As I'm learning more about different industries and stuff. I think digital is just way more interesting, more fast moving. There's a lot more opportunities for growth in it than something like more like traditional, like say retail or whatever else. So yeah, that's kind of how I started. Just kind of looking for a job, any job I could get in second year, but I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that you found that finding pretty early, in terms of you don't necessarily have to be technical to be necessarily working at a tech company. I know that for me took a really long time to kind of grasp and understand. But speaking of our last guest here, Rushabh, I know you have a pretty interesting way and foray into tech. It's very different from.
Yeah. So yeah, totally. Growing up, I think I was involved in tech in just a very consumer way. I mean, back in the day, we didn't really have computers, and I had it kind of early on, like in like early high school. So it was like new to me later on in life, and so, or like I guess compared to kids nowadays. But so I didn't really think about my career in tech in that way, because I had, I guess, sights on other things, or was interested in other things at the time. But then after university, during university, I actually realized I had interest in entrepreneurship, and just I guess going down the route of exploring that, I came across the digital world and the technical world and like the startup world, where all these things were happening in a very cool and interesting way. And at the time, my degree at university was in medical sciences, so I didn't really so my track was very different, and my goals were very different at the time. So it was really new and interesting to see all this whole world sort of develop. And so I got into it in a very small way, where I just kind of looked at solving problems, and like that was like, well, that's kind of what tech does at a very core level, solve problems. So I was like thinking about that, and as I realized that I kind of liked it, I thought I can get involved in tech. The problem solving side of things that were not as super technical as Shairi mentioned, I believe. Sorry if I mispronounced her name, but yeah. So like the way I got into that respect was right after university. I also had emailed the CEO, essentially a co-founder, and spoke with him to share my skill set and where I was coming from and the short entrepreneurial experience that I had gotten to get myself involved with his company that was focused in tech. And so I did that for a little while, and that was really interesting because I got to understand how the world of startups and technical ways of working, where there's the developers, the product managers, the UX designers, and there's like whole like an ecosystem of people working together to like make these startups work. And then I guess I decided to pursue that curiosity further. Eventually, I got into a point where I did sales for a while at another startup after I was doing the one at the first startup, and then eventually continued on the curiosity about technology. And I decided that I actually wanted to learn how to build it. And so essentially, at this point I was trying to figure out how to learn coding and development itself. And with a background that was not technical at all, to do that was a little challenging, but luckily there's a lot of really great resources out there nowadays to get your feet wet with learning how to code for the first time without any experience. There's a lot of great gradual ways to learn it, as well as more intensive ways like boot camps to get yourself started if you want to take it a little more seriously on a career level. And that's what I did. So I took the coding boot camp route as well, did that. That always means that you have to learn by yourself, but it just helps accelerate that process by giving you some structure and some goals and such, and a community to help you get there as well. And then that's sort of how I got my first development role in tech, but that's kind of where I'm at right now, and that's kind of the story so far.
Right. So you took a pretty long-winded path, and then you did a bit more of a serious switch into learning through the bootcamp, and then that kind of propelled you to your current career path right now as a software developer. Yeah. Fair enough. I'm curious about everyone's experience just kind of working within their roles and or like within the industry of tech, I would say. Like what have you guys kind of liked being in the space or doing the things that you guys have, and what haven't you liked?
I'll jump on this first. Once again, the better phrasing is I worked with tech. I don't think I worked in tech or the technology sector. My favorite part was the people that I ran into. Fascinating people of all types and all types of, I guess, traits and characteristics. You got your typical awkward Zuckerberg type social creatures, all the way to the really charismatic, outgoing, people who could be in politics if they weren't in tech. So it's an insane diversity. I think there's a stereotype, that, the person who does the coding and development sounds a certain way or looks a certain way. That wasn't the case, what I found collaborating with all these different people. And I think a lot of people here are touching on it. A lot of them actually emphasized the significance of soft skills. Like I think we already heard two stories of reaching out to the company heads in order to, get your foot on the door or kick the door down. And the tech entrepreneurs or the people I talk to, they often keep reiterating technical is great. You need technicals at a certain point to move up or understand what's happening. But soft skills will do you wonders in this sector or in these roles. So that was really fascinating to me. And as someone who studies it, in an academic setting, we look at digital innovations, we, sit in our armchairs, we theorize about, how these things are done rather than doing it. I think that also rings true that the person who's in the sector who uses it, there's a whole diversity and people from many walks of life that make possible the ecosystem that's been mentioned. So I think it's the diversity and the people that really stood out to me about the people I've met, at least from tech.
It's really cool that you brought up the whole soft skills aspect. It's generally like going back even a couple years. It seems like tech and working with or being in a tech company or in a tech role, you're always kind of identified as someone as I have this technical skill, whether that be coding or marketing, growth marketing, whatever have you. But there is an increasing school of thought about being able to identify people who have really good soft skills, because that's so tough to kind of train and make people understand within an organization. I kind of want to segue that into having some other people talk about this, but did you guys feel that having soft skills kind of mattered in sort of the environments you guys worked in?
I was gonna say, I personally think soft skills is more important than the actual technical skills, just because you always learn the technical skills anyways. Like in both my jobs, nothing I really learned before was used. I have to learn it again, right? The soft skills are stuff that it's harder to teach specifically. You know what I mean? Like if you have to learn a new language for a job, it takes a week or two just to quickly pick up the language. But like teaching something like how to communicate with others, how to work with others, I feel like that's a lot harder to teach, right? Because there's no you can't just search up on Google how to do that. So I feel like slowly working on your soft skills is just a lot more important, since technical skills can be picked up so quickly. Especially I feel like in coding, the technical skills, it's really fast to pick up. Once you learn one language, learning the next language is probably way faster. At this point, once you learn a couple languages, learning a new language takes a day or two. Learning the basics of a new language. So I feel if anything, if you want to get into tech, from my experience, I feel you should really focus a lot more on the soft skills and pick that up. Because although to me it is right that there's a lot of diversity, from my computer science program, there also are a lot of people who lack a lot of the soft skills as well, right? I'll say one example from me personally is that there's a lot of people in my class and they have for example, better marks than me, which would show that they have better technical skills. But I ended up getting more co-op positions than them, simply because I have more soft skills, right? And I have more diversity of skills to put on my resume. Well, they have maybe, I got they could say I have a 4.0 GPA, but that's all they could put. But for me, I could put experience in doing some research, or I could put experience in writing reports, right? It's having that, I think, helped a lot more, especially as I talked to the HR person, they said that, those skills help me get the job. But that's just from my experience. I'm not sure, because I specifically worked at a government agency. So from my experience working in a government agency, soft skills were a lot more important than the technical skills. But I'm sure someone else here could tell you if that, how much it matters in an actual developer agency, developing job.
Yeah, I completely agree. Soft skills are super important. Sorry, sure. You can say something.
No, I was just gonna say more from the business aspect of running a tech company. I think soft skills are everything. Again, the company I worked at, when I first started, it was maybe a year and a half old. So we were in that stage where it was literally just selling our business model to as many clients as possible, as well as many developers and all the tech talent as possible. So having a lot of basic sales-oriented skills, being able to speak with people, being able to convince people to leave their fancy jobs to join your tech company, being able to convince people, in our case, to move halfway across the world. I think literally was the only reason the business was able to succeed. And it's all connections, right? Especially at a startup, I feel. You need to know people who are going to be able to kind of help you, whether it be by lending you their skills, lending you their services, lending you their connections. So being able to maintain and develop those types of relationships, I think, is so important. Same from an entrepreneurship start point, right? You can be the smartest person ever, you can have the best product in the world, most technical, whatever, but if you're not able to sell it to either different companies or different clients or different consumers, then your product is useless. And essentially so are you, right? So being able to have a good balance of both, I think is so important.
Yeah, I think the two most important skills in terms of the whole tech company space is like, can you build and can you sell? And having both of those qualities really being shined through your employees and or your organizational heads, that's super key. So I think moving forward, I think we're going to see a lot more people going to those avenues, and then there's going to be that shift towards maybe improvement in soft skills as market demand's going to be at that. With that being said, Shairi, I know you worked in your specific role that was not necessarily technical. Do you want to touch a bit on like what that experience was like? Because you probably had to work with some technical teams here and there.
So yeah, like I said, I literally have zero technical background, so it's kind of scary. But when I joined the company, I was the only intern. Is me, the CEO, and like 2 VPs, and like the like guy that like funded the company, right? So it was super impactful work. Like everything I did actually mattered. I wasn't running around getting coffee. I was actually either like helping build parts of the business or make other parts more efficient, or like create slide decks for client sales pitches and things like that. So in terms of working in kind of a tech startup, I thought it was really fun. Every day was different. I was doing something super different every single day. And I was getting to own a lot of stuff, which I felt at that age. You don't have many experiences or opportunities to do that. And I think that really helped me develop not only a wide variety of skills, but understand where my strengths were, what are some improvement areas that I could focus on. And it really helped me, move up. During my second and third internship, I was really able to speak about all the impactful work I did for this company to help me get the next one. And then I've been on and off. Like I've worked part-time during school for the company because I really enjoyed the people there. We got along really well. And you asked, what is the most interesting part of working in kind of the tech space? And I would say how quickly everyone pivots, or how quickly everyone moves and adapts. For example, when COVID first hit, it was just me and the CEO. We worked together very closely that April, because it was such a weird time, right? If your whole business model is bringing in international people and having them immigrate to the country, but then borders close down, like what do you do? So I think that was such an interesting time for me to be a part of that company and see how they reacted, how they adapted. And literally within, I'd say 2 weeks of us working really long hours figuring out what the next move is, we were able to completely pivot, open up 2 different other mini businesses, and completely shift in such a quick time period. And I've worked in corporate internships as well, and I can tell you exactly how different that is, because corporate moves so slow. So I think tech, just the way they're able to shift and adapt and innovate, is really amazing to see.
It's super cool that you were able to work so closely with a CEO of a company. I often really see that in the small tech organizations, not so much elsewhere. And it's such a very interesting experience that you get to see the direct impacts of that. I mean, that's really awesome. Rushabh, I know you actually held both types of roles in both the being able to sell and being able to build right now. Do you want to touch a bit on soft skills versus technical skills?
Yeah, totally. So the way I wanted to put it was that I've been in entry level 3 times basically in a row, because I guess my interest was changing, where getting into startups as a on the ground level, in getting into sales, and then getting into developer. And so what I feel like I've picked up and I've sort of understood is that fundamentally people in tech care about whether you can do the job or not. And there are people, right? A startup has certain roles that need to be executed in the company, and they hire people to sort of execute those roles. If you can show yourself executing what somebody in that role would do in a different context, to a different scale, that's you learning the soft skills. I think that's why, at least how I've begun to reflect on it in hindsight, is that by exercising your skills and like pursuing curiosity, like pushing an idea forward further and further, just as like at the basis of like I think what entrepreneurship is, or all this kind of stuff, where you just take an idea and see how far you can push it, and like as the challenges come up, you react and you learn from those things. I feel like the more you can get through yourself in that process, I have found, teaches you those soft skills, and like teaches you how to adapt and teaches you how to react, or gives you context in terms of when you see things, and in terms of when tech companies are asking things from you, like you can then put it into context, like, yeah, I can understand like why companies care if people spend a long time at companies versus a short time at companies. So you sort of put their perspectives in context in your own mind. And so I guess, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that being able to have a core understanding of like what kind of problems you want to solve, and then sort of like apply your curiosity to sort of adhere to any challenges that come through, is how you can learn those soft skills. And then the technical skills will also come as you push that direction too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I find that more people in tech tend to be a lot more catered towards really trying to find out what problems they are trying to solve, and they try to pursue either tech roles or working with or around this whole tech field as a way of kind of moving forward in that direction. I think all across the board, everyone said really positive things about tech, but I just wanted to switch gears a little bit and play devil's advocate. Like, what have you guys kind of not enjoyed or found challenging working in the environments, or the things you've done in the past or right now?
Basically, I was gonna say that before I get to the negatives, I just want to quickly say that I think the most important soft skills for tech is like be able to solve problems, because like everybody can everybody can learn like a language, and everybody can learn the technical stuff, but I often see like a lot of people who are like struggling in tech as the people who can't solve problems. And I feel like that's also kind of related to like some of the negatives as well, is that like you have to always be able to like solve new problems, especially like with a lot of like tech sectors, right? Like, because your whole job is to solve problems, so I feel like you can't really stop solving. You know what I mean? Like you have to always progress. There's no like really like slowing down and just like chilling. You know what I mean? Like it's so fast paced, which is like one of the pros as well, right? That it's always moving, there's always new interesting stuff. But like that also leads to a negative. So if you're the kind of person who just wants to like relax a lot more at work, I feel like you can't do that as much in tech, just because like you're always having to like solve new problems and stuff as such. And I think I was gonna say another problem is that like sometimes if you're working specifically a tech company that's like really big, which like my friends give examples about, is that instead of like learning how like being able to make a bunch of new stuff, you kind of get into like making small functions here and there. You can't really see like the whole of what you're creating. So these are both like I feel like more personality kind of type. So if you're the kind of person who wants to have more like a slow kind of like chill job where you kind of do the same kind of stuff every day, then tech is definitely not for you. And I feel like if you're the kind of person who like needs to see like their creation, then you don't want to work in like a big company. You probably want to work in like probably a smaller kind of company. From like my experience and from the experiences of my friends and stuff. So that's I think two of the negatives, I think.
Does anyone else want to share their sort of sentiments on that?
Yeah, I can be a little quick. I've worked at mostly companies that are smaller, and I think the challenge is that you end up working a lot more hours because your expectations are higher, in the sense that there's a lot of, as the previous speaker was mentioning, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of problems to be solved constantly, and that means that if you want to learn, it's like, again, these are opportunities where you can get more the more you spend time in. So that's one thing. And then two, because you work so closely with such few people all the time, it becomes a lot about relationship managing and like understanding how people work and learning how to work with a team, which is great learning opportunities, but also challenging oftentimes, because again, like there's such a fast pace that you want to do your best, and like you want to make sure that everyone's also happy and working together and all that kind of stuff too. So it's an interesting dynamic, but definitely one that's rewarding.
Sherry, do you want
just to build off of that point, I think, yeah, sure. So to kind of build off of his point, I think maybe this is more specific to smaller companies than bigger tech companies, but I feel like because they are so small, it kind of limits the amount of growth you're able to have, like in terms of learning from others. For example, if during my internship I'm already working closely with the CEO, like how much more is there for me to learn if I stay at the company for years and years. So I think that's one aspect, but I guess that's more just smaller companies in general. I think in general, not necessarily my experience, but I think there's a lot of barriers to entering the tech industry, which isn't ideal. Just like even having the opportunity to develop a lot of technical skills is a barrier to maybe lower income people who can't afford coding classes, or their high schools and stuff don't provide a lot of opportunities to learn at a higher level. So I think there's just like a huge digital divide right now, and hopefully we see that shrink in the future. But I think that is generally one problem that the tech industry is facing. Yeah.
Also, I'll just jump into it. I have to read a lot of literature on digital divides and whatnot. Actually, I went to this conference a couple of years ago, and the theme was artificial intelligence, right? And a lot of the people there were big shots, So it's like a duck out of water for me. But we had like captains of industry, we had billionaires, head of states, all types of people with crazy big ideas there. And when they talk about artificial intelligence, a lot of them talk with, a lot of glee, because these people made it, right? They're literally at the top of whatever pedestal or trajectory you can be at. So they talk about it very positively. A lot of them, you'll see, oh my God, singularity, machines and humans becoming one, that's going to solve all our problems. I actually sat next to a Swiss banker, and I had to explain to her that gentrification was a negative concept, and she's like, wow, that never occurred to me. Now that you explain it, that I'd always thought gentrification was a positive thing. And unfortunately, it doesn't need to be someone in tech, but they can be building something without fully understanding the repercussions of what's being built and the social aspects. Sometimes they don't fully understand what the social implications of that product or development might be. And sometimes as humans, we're just not smart enough to understand or see that far ahead, right? So yeah, it is a fascinating conundrum with things happening now, such as, without getting too far-fetched, such as artificial intelligence, such as all this talks of singularity, the ethics around autonomous vehicles, and all these issues. And you'll need those people who not only have the soft skills, but the people who have both technical and the social understanding. So I think there's a relevancy for people, who can go across the aisle. So to say, who also study not only the technical aspect of things, but who study and understand the social elements, the political, the economics, and that's very difficult to find. I think I have come across scholars who truly understand and who also themselves have technical backgrounds. Hard to find, but there are people like that there. And I think that's just something that, there is hope in seeing things in an integrated and meaningful way.
I think that kind of stems from the whole positive notion that you mentioned, Tahmid, like where there's a lot of people with diverse backgrounds, where a lot more opinions are coming in place from various different avenues and people of different walks of life. And because of that, the counterpoint is that, for example, that lady that you were talking about who had never heard of the idea that gentrification was not necessarily a great one. So it's cool seeing it in one perspective of a lot more people coming into tech and who have completely different paths of life, but then also you see the cons and something like that. Sorry, Hassan, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, I was gonna kind of go off on what Tahmid said, is that I feel like a lot of us have like the idea that technology is always good, like everything like that's made is always good, but like basically everything that gets created, there's also like negative connotations as well, right? So I feel like one of the things about technology is you have to sometimes understand that you're kind of like the bad guy. Like I honestly feel like some of the things that I created make me feel like, oh damn, I'm kind of the bad guy, like using this kind of stuff, right? Though, I mean, maybe that's just me, I just have like a guilty conscience for no reason. But I feel like one of the things about technology is that it's not always good, right? And what Tamir was saying, you have to understand some social consequences. And I feel like one of the problems is a lot of people don't understand social consequences when they create tech. And like, even though there is like diversity, there's also a lack of diversity, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, you will find people of different walks of life, but majority of people will be like a specific type of people, right? Like like I don't want to get like too negative, but if, for example, say in my class, like out of 300 computer science students, there's one person who's African Canadian, right? Like everybody else is like South Asian or East Asian or Caucasian, right? So that's like one of the problems as well, is that there is diversity. Like you will find some people like of every group, but I feel like one of the problems just in the tech sector, like not in like working in tech, I'm just saying like in the tech sector, is that there's a lack of like general diversity. There's like not that many people of like different sides, right? So when you get a lot of people who have like from like even if there's different kinds of people, if most of the people are from the same like background, you get those kind of problems, right? Like a lot of people who learn about like how to code and stuff are like middle income or upper middle income and stuff like that. So then they basically don't understand the problems that poor people face, right? So they're thinking, oh, I'm gonna solve this problem with like with technology, right? I'm making like automated cars that's gonna like save so much time. But they're not thinking like, oh, but look at all those people who are like working class or lower class, and then they're gonna lose all their jobs because a lot of them have jobs where they have to like drive trucks and stuff, right? And I'm not, again, this is not for like working in tech. This is more like just the tech sector in general has some of these problems. And I think we definitely need to encourage a lot of people from different backgrounds, like backgrounds that normally aren't in technology, to get into technology so we can solve a lot more of these problems.
I think one of the things that's going to happen is tech itself is not going to necessarily remain as this singular industry, rather than it's going to, and we're already seeing this happen, it's connecting with every industry, from like mining to energy to climate, like whatever job that you are currently working in, I feel like there will be some technology component aspect to it. So with that, the positive hoping here is that there will be more of those diverse talks and thought leaders that come into the space and hopefully make better accessible tech and make tech more enjoyable for everyone to kind of come together. I want to kind of end off with this note, since you guys have already experienced what it's like working in tech and what that whole journey is like. What advice do you have for people looking to break into working in technology?
I was going to say that I think fundamentally my advice would be pursue, like start with your curiosity and push an idea that springs from your curiosity forward, and whatever sort of comes your way in terms of things that you need to help push that idea forward, those are those opportunities that you need to leverage to then learn. So I think like that's the advice I'd be giving. And I feel like the more times you can bring ideas to life and continue that cycle in whatever capacity, not necessarily for a business, but if it could be like a volunteer thing, it could be anything, as long as you take an idea and you push it forward and you overcome challenges and you learn new things to make that idea go forward and forward. The more you do that, the better you'll be at doing that overall, and the more people will be attracted to your value for overall as well.
So I think I spoke about this already, but I think, there's so many different ways and different roles to get involved with if you want to work in tech. Don't just think that, oh, I don't have coding skills, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can never work in tech. Like, there's a lot of different opportunities. If you really are interested and passionate, find them, pursue them, go for them. And I think, just like, don't ever limit yourself. Chase opportunities, and that's, I think, the best thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have to agree that you don't have to really know coding, but you can also just learn it like fairly quick. Like you can learn the basics of a language in just like a month, I think. So even though you don't really need, like, you don't have to think that I have to know so much about coding, you can just learn like the basics, which I feel like would give you would help you out, right? So, and it really isn't that hard just to learn like the basics of a language. So I think one of the ways you can get started is just like figure out what kind of place you want to work in, and maybe learn like just maybe what kind of company you want to work at, and learn the basics of a language or two, and then like I feel like that would help as well. And another thing I think is you have to like make connections with other people in tech, because a lot of like jobs from what I see is that like you knowing someone who works there already, so just kind of get to know other people who work in technology as well.
All right, that unless anyone else has anything to add, that kind of wraps up this episode. Thank you to everyone for kind of sharing your opinions here. Really appreciate it. Hopefully, if you're listening, you got some good tidbits about what it's like being in the tech industry, and hopefully you get to work in the tech for yourself. So this was hosted by Saif, and if you'd like to check out the JOS Youth platform, we are in almost all of them. So we're on Spotify, Discord. There's a couple other spots as well. We have YouTube. And finally, hope you guys had a good time listening.
Later.